2024 NFL Draft is in the books, and now it is time for a sports tradition unlike any other: draft grades. These meaningless letter grades we give to picks before they even put on a jersey for the team, but we all look for it. We're all suckers for it, so I'll be the bad guy, and I'll give out my grades for every single pick the Browns made in the draft. But quick reminder to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I want to get to 35,000 subscribers before the end of the month. We're running out of days. So if you're looking for a go-to Browns YouTube channel during the dog days of the offseason, this is the channel for you. Free daily video, so consider subscribing if you have not already. Now, let's get into the Browns' first pick they made in the draft, which they had to wait the longest, all the way until pick 54, where they went with Ohio State defensive tackle Mike Hall. And this was just the all-time Andrew Berry pick. He's young and he's athletic. And if we know anything about Berry's draft history, he values those two things more than anything else, no matter what he tries to tell us. Mike Hall, not even 21 years old yet. He's having O'Douls, probably not, to celebrate being drafted into the NFL. Very athletic defensive tackle. Sub 300 pounds. I don't think he's going to be a nose tackle in the NFL. Not quite big enough for that in my eyes. But I think there are some really good pass rushing traits that the Browns are willing to be patient on. Now, unfortunately, he was rather inconsistent at Ohio State because of the injuries he sustained playing for the Buckeyes. But the Browns aren't going to toss him into the fire, most likely, to start his NFL career. They've got a deep rotation already at defensive tackle. But this pick, and like a lot of other picks the Browns made, was a pick for the future in my eyes. I'll give this pick a B- grade. Mike Hall was not one of my favorite prospects coming into this draft. When I look for pass rushers, I personally prefer production over athletic traits. Now, that's not the same for every other position group, but to me, it isn't so much about how fast or how strong you are. It's about being able to get to the quarterback. And those things help you do that. But if you're unable to do that in college, I'm not sold that when you get to the NFL, you'll wake up one day and figure out how to do it. So let me know this. Do you like going defensive tackle first? There was a lot of buzz leading up to the draft that the Browns could go offensive tackle because they've got 3 tackles coming off knee surgeries, leg injuries, and maybe it's a good idea to replenish at that position with some expiring contracts in the near future. But ultimately, they go to the defensive line. Let me know down in the comment section below. Fast forward to pick 85, where the Browns went with Zak Zinter, guard out of Michigan. Had he not broken his leg against Ohio State in the big game, I think he would have gone a handful of picks earlier. Now, Zinter is not one of the best athletes in this class, so he may not be a prototypical Andrew Berry type prospect, but he's a mean SOB. The guy's a bully when he puts the pads on. You can check out his PFF grades and stats from last year. I mean, he was a 4-year starter for Michigan, so plenty of experience, and he definitely has no problem getting to the second level and finishing blocks. For a long time on this channel, leading up to the draft, I warned you guys that when you look at the draft, you got to think about what GMs think about, which is a year ahead. And the Browns in 2025 have 2 starting guards with $20+ million cap hits. So all mock draft season long, I had the Browns going offensive guard, and sure enough, they do that with Zak Zinter. I'll give this pick a B+ pick. I don't know if Zinter's ever going to be as great of an athlete as like maybe Wyatt Teller is, or Joe Patonio in that regard as well, but I think Zinter is a starting guard in the NFL. And like Michael Hall, he probably won't be asked to have a big role in 2024, but come 2025, when the offseason rolls around, if the Browns have to have some cap casualties, they've already got some good pieces in their farm system. Now, after round 3, the Browns sat out round 4, but they did have pick 156 in round 5, where they went with Louisville wide receiver Jamari Thrash. 5'11", 188 pounds, really good speed to his game. He's got some excellent yards after the catch ability as well, which is why I thought the Browns may go with a Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky, the best yak threat, some say, in this draft class. Ultimately, they wait on wide receiver, which was another thing I saw coming for the Browns because Andrew Berry has already made so many investments via trade and the draft the last 2 years to the wide receiver room. I didn't think he'd go back to it early in the draft. Now, Thrash missed some time at the end of the season for Louisville, but he started off at Georgia State. He's a bit older, so when you get to round 5, you can't be too picky about the prospects. But last year for the Cardinals, 858 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think Thrash brings something to this wide receiver room that it doesn't already have, which is a yards after catch candidate. I don't think he's going to have a big role this year. In fact, like Cedric Tillman, he may very well be a healthy scratch for much of the year, which is why I'll give this a C grade. At that point of the draft, when you're at 156, it's tough to be too polarizing on a prospect. But there were other guys available that I still preferred, like maybe Taj Washington at the same position from USC. He went a whole 2 rounds later. I was higher on him than Thrash. But for me, pick 156. I'm not going to get too many of my feels for a selection. I'll give it a C grade. Then at round 6, pick 206, they finally go linebacker like I've been asking all offseason long, Nathaniel Watson out of Mississippi State. There's a lot to like about Watson as a player. He was a multi-year starter for the Mississippi State Bulldogs, led them in tackles year after year, very productive, good speed as well. Maybe not the biggest frame, but at 233 pounds, you can kind of get a sense of what the direction the NFL is headed at linebacker. It's not being about guys that can shed blocks from tacklers or shed blocks from tackles and guards, but can they run with tight ends and running backs? Because that is a part of the job requirement for the modern day linebacker. I'm going to give this pick a C+. I would give it a much higher grade if there weren't so many off the field concerns. And the Browns have gone down this path before with a guy that has pre-draft red flags. Wink, wink, certain defensive tackle out of Oklahoma. And we know how quickly that went downhill. So hopefully Nathaniel Watson can keep himself out of trouble. I don't want to smear his name on the day he gets drafted. You guys can do your own research on that front. But if he does stay out of trouble, I think this is going to be a really good pick for the Browns in a year or two at the linebacker spot. Now, what position would you have drafted earlier? I would have said running back, and I still do. I hope the Browns not picking a running back means Nick Chubb's rehab is going well ahead of schedule. But if the plan is to get Chubb back whenever he's ready and just, hey, F it, we got Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman, I don't like that plan. I would have liked a draft pick at the running back position. Then in round number 7, pick 227, the Browns go with South Dakota cornerback Myles Harden, 4-year starter for South Dakota from Southeast Florida, and he was a really athletic player for South Dakota. Tom Downey had him ranked as his number 31 overall corner. He actually had 46 tackles, 1 interception in his final year for South Dakota. That one pick coming against Missouri. So when he played against the best competition he was going to face all year, he played his best. Now he's got really good speed. He's got good fluid hips. Doesn't have the best length, though, for a corner, which is why I don't think he's going to be an outside corner in the NFL. I think you've got your brand new Greg Newsome backup slot corner. Him and Cam Mitchell can battle for that role. And also, if Newsome is not here long-term and the Browns don't invest in him, well, they've already got somewhat of a head start at the cornerback position. But ultimately, cornerback is such a cornerstone piece. We know how highly Andrew Berry covets good corners. So I think every single draft you can pencil in a corner for Cleveland. I'll give this pick a B. I thought he would go a little bit earlier. I think playing at South Dakota means that he's not going to have a ton of eyeballs on him. He didn't go up against the best competition, but he did play very well. So for me, I'll give it a B for a 7th-round pick. Now, the Browns had one more 7th-round pick at 243, where they went with a defensive tackle that I'm pretty optimistic that's going to have a slightly, I wouldn't say large role or anything like that, but he's definitely going to be a competitor, and I think he's going to have a good spot in the rotation for the Browns' defensive line. That is Cincinnati's Jowon Briggs. He is 300-plus pounds. He ran a 5-second 40-yard dash at his pro day, and he had 6 sacks last year. That's all I need to hear. That's good enough for me for pick 243. I'll keep it nice and short and sweet. To me, that's a B grade. I know that Jowon Briggs may not have the greatest production, but he made Bruce Feldman's freak list. And if you're on that list and you're getting picked in round 7, I'm willing to wager that if it doesn't work out, boo-hoo, you gave up a 7th rounder. If it does work out, people are going to look back and go, how the heck did he slip all the way to round 7? And what a great find by the Browns that has extreme athletic traits that just needs a really good coach to put everything together. Oh, I wonder where they might find a really good defensive coordinator. But to round out the entire draft class for Cleveland, I know you're probably looking for a big A+. I'm going to give him a C+. And I think it's a pretty fair grade to give for a team that didn't pick until pick 54. This draft may look a lot better in 2 or 3 years, but I don't expect any production at all from these 6 players in 2024. And I'm okay with that. There's not a spot for them on the 2024 roster in terms of seeing quality snaps or minutes. Like, the Browns use this draft to just grow their 2025 roster and farm system. And I've got no qualms with that because they addressed all their positional needs in free agency. The reason why I'm not going to give it a B-, which, by the way, is like, part of my French, the pussiest grade to give, because you're like, listen, it's not bad because there's a B in it, but I'm going to give it a minus. That way I don't find myself, head over heels in love with it. It's the Switzerland of draft grades. The reason why I'm not giving it one is I would have preferred a running back pick. There's a lot of eggs in the Nick Chubb coming back early, and if not, Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman are going to do a great job holding down the Ford basket. I would have liked another Easter egg in that basket. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate those of you that hang out with us and that have hung out with us for the entirety of the 2024 NFL Draft. Make sure to subscribe tomorrow. I'll be getting into the office bright and early for draft grades and for UDFA trackers. So make sure the sub button, turn on your noties so you don't miss a thing.